people and of Australia. Amen. I'd also like to recognise the traditional owners. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to elders past and present. The Armidale regional community pays tribute to their love of the land, love of people and love of culture. We all share the beauty of this land, the richness of its soil and the uniqueness of its wildlife. Let us walk together in the footsteps of love and understanding. While valuing diversity, let us share the same hope for a better future. Thank you. I'd just like to state also that this meeting's being audio and video recorded, and the recordings of the non-confidential part of this meeting will be made available on the internet. No other persons are permitted to record the meeting unless specifically authorised to do so by council. Gazetted a number of changes to the Local Government Act. One of those changes was the term of the Mayor. The term of the Mayor is now to be for 2 years. With council elections due in September 2020, the second mayoral term of this council will therefore be for the remaining 12 months. So the first matter for council to determine is the method for voting of the Mayor. The options are ballot, an ordinary ballot and open voting, which is by show of hands. There's a recommendation in the paper provided to councillors that the method of voting be by open voting or show of hands. Do I have a mover? Is there a seconder? All those in favour? Can you raise your right hand, please? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6. So that's... All right. Can all those people in favour please raise their right hand, please? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the motion's not passed. Yes.
I speak in favour of the recommendation because people have elected the team. It's now the role of the team to elect their leader. There's no doubt that this is a matter of considerable public interest, and especially as the term is now 2 years and not 1. I think if this council intends to be absolutely transparent and open, this is a great way to start by letting the people know how we each vote in relation to this most important matter. Thank you.
Any other people, councillors, want to have a...
Mr. CEO, I think the concern of some of the councillors here is that... Sorry, our rules have changed, our procedure has changed a little. Can everybody hear?
Yeah, we can now.
Thank you. I think the concern of some of the councillors here is that there's been a very protracted campaign. The matter of the election of the Mayor is, by law, a matter for the councillors here. There's a very strong feeling that we should be moving forward as a team. It's clear that there will be some differences because everybody has recently been in competition. There is a view that it would be better to retain a secret ballot on the basis that that minimises any residual anxiety or sense of betrayal that might happen if people are forced to vote in an open, public way by show of hands. It's also been something that's always been a part of the mayoral elections in this area in the past. So I think that's the concern that some of the councillors feel. Excuse me, Mr. CEO, I think, are you going to ask for any further speakers on that topic? There may be another speaker in the negative.
Yes, Mr. CEO, I'm not in favour of an open show of hands. I don't believe that's going to be the best outcome for us. I'd prefer a secret ballot.
So do we go to So is there any other party who wants to speak for? Yep.
Yeah, it is now. In all interactions that we've had prior to being here today, there has been a huge call from the community and the candidates here who are now councillors for transparency. And I think it's important that we start how we mean to continue. And as a team, that means that we show the community that we can be transparent, hence the reason why I believe a show of hands is a good way to go. Thank you.
Any others against? So I'll put the original recommendation again to the vote, which is that the method of voting be by open voting by show of hands. So all those in favour? So we have 4. Okay.
May I make amendment to that motion? That I move that the method of voting be by secret ballot.
Do we have a proposer, mover? Yep. Seconder? So let's put that motion to the floor. All those in favour? So there's 7. Yep. So motion carried.
What we do now, Peter, sorry, is that we actually move the amendment. So that the amendment has been considered and we move it as a motion. I know it sounds like ridiculous, so we just need to move that as a...
So we'll move that motion as an amendment.
That's it, yeah.
So we have to vote. So we'll vote again on that. All those in favour of moving that amendment, raise your right hand. Thank you. As returning officer, I now invite nominations for the position of Mayor. I currently have with me 2. Are there any other nominations for Mayor?
Right, a point of order, just in relation to the recording of the minutes, I was not a mover or a seconder of the previous motion. Just, I think it was Councillor Murat. Thank you.
Two nominations in alphabetical order. I've got Simon Murray and then I've got Councillor Ian Tiley. Are there any other nominations? So just bear with us for a few minutes. We'll just get the forms ready for circulation.
Could I move the
Do we have a seconder? All those in favour? Can you just put up your hands again? All those in favour of the 3 minute? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion is lost. Thank you. The ballot forms are now being distributed to the councillors. May I ask, once you've voted, just turn them over and then we'll, our governance officer will pick them up. So you just place a cross in the your preferred, just a cross, in a single cross. So I've received the votes in. The votes are 7 votes for Councillor Murray, 4 votes for Councillor Tiley. So I declare that Councillor Murray is elected Mayor for the ensuing 2 years. Congratulations, Councillor Murray. Did you want to? Right. Yep, we can do that. Are you happy for me to run the Deputy Mayor? So the term of the Deputy Mayor can be, so item 8.2, which is the election of the Deputy Mayor. The term of the Deputy Mayor can be for the mayoral term, or it can be a shorter term of 1 year as the Council determines. So there are a number of recommendations with this paper. It is an option for Council to have a Deputy Mayor or not. So the first recommendation is that Council create a position of Deputy Mayor. So do I have a mover for that? Dorothy? Councillor Robinson? Seconder? Councillor Witters? All those in favour? It's a majority. So the recommendation is that we create a position of Deputy Mayor for Armidale Regional Council. The second recommendation is that the set term of the appointment for Deputy Mayor be for 2 years. So do I have a mover? Councillor Morat. A seconder? Councillor Murray. All those in favour? Motion passed, and that's resolved for the Deputy Mayor for to be 2 years. Do we know the method of voting? So the method of voting, the recommendation is that it be by open voting for show of hands. Do I have a mover? Was that original? No. Yeah. So do we have a mover for that? Is there going to be amendment?
Can I foreshadow an amendment that that also be by closed ballot? The election of the Deputy Mayor be by closed ballot?
So the ballot forms are being distributed, same as last time. The process is with 3. We eliminate the lowest and then we go to a second vote. One cross.
Point of order, CEO, if someone gets an absolute majority in the first round, you won't go to the second vote.
You eliminate the lowest and then go back again to...
Even if you've got an absolute majority.
Correct.
It's not preferential, it's ordinary house.
So I've received the ballots. We have 4 votes for Councillor O'Connor, 4 votes for Councillor Robinson and 3 votes for Councillor Bailey. So Councillor Bailey is eliminated, and we'll go to a ballot now between Councillor Robinson and Councillor O'Connor.
Joe's just asked the councillors to be right. You feel okay?
I have the votes. I declare by 6 votes to 5 Councillor Robinson as the Deputy Mayor. Congratulations to Councillor Murray and Councillor Robinson. So we'll continue with the council meeting.
May I suggest a recess for 15 minutes, 20 minutes? I mean, there's going to be some media people here that may want to congratulate us and not want to stay for the whole meeting, so I just thought it might be a good idea to a recess.
Is there a motion to suspend standing orders? Passed. I'll put it to the vote. We've only got 4 votes. 5, 6.
Well done. There's Councillor Murray just picked there should be 2 against. So it says if nobody speaks for, so there's no for, then it's the end of the debate. That's it.
It's a straight procedure. If it's straight, that's one way.
Yep. Yep. Good morning, councillors. I'd like to recommence this meeting. Before I do, I'd ask our CEO just to run through these microphone procedures to you so they're all in the understanding.
Thank you, Mayor. So only the Mayor's microphone and one other microphone. There's little cards in front of everyone, but just to step through it, only the Mayor's microphone and one other microphone can be active at any one time. Push the button on the microphone once to activate it, and there's a number of different colour lights. Red means it's active. A flashing green light means you're next in queue to talk, and a solid green light means you're in queue to talk. But the key thing to remember is when you finish speaking to turn it off. That's what I always forget to do. So you need to press it to turn it off. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Now, before we move on, there's no apologies, everyone's present. Any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Right. Do we have any have your say people registered? Thank you. And of course there's no confirmation. Is there any confirmation of minutes? There is? It's going to be hard for us to confirm minutes, but... Sorry, Councillor Tarling. Yes, please. How can we have a second and no one was there? Doesn't need to. Right out. Andrew, Councillor Morat, second. Is there any discussion to be had on them? Any? Thank you. No discussion on them? Right. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. 7 minutes. That was a record. Let's keep this one down to that sort of time. What's the notice of motion? Just to clarify. Okay, Section 8. We've done the 8.1 and 8.2. We're moving on to item 8.3, which is council meeting, and I believe it should be up on the screen. Let me flick through. So the recommendation is in two parts. That the ordinary meeting of council be held in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice, Part D, operative parts clauses 1.1, and the second part is the ordinary council meeting cycle, and the dates are and the times are up on the board. Could I have a mover for that, please?
Could I move an amendment, or foreshadow an amendment if you like? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, now you are.
Well, now you can. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm having trouble learning this. Can I foreshadow an amendment that, first of all, that the items be dealt with in seriatim, so that item A is dealt with separately to item B, and in respect to item B, that sub-point 1 remain, and then the subsequent words are that the further dates of council, dates and times for council be referred to an urgent workshop for councillors to discuss. I can speak to that if there is a seconder for that.
So do we have a mover and a seconder for the motion? If we go through the motion and then you make amendment, that might be an easy way of going. So
Yeah,
is there a mover?
How would you like to proceed, Mr Mayor?
So is there a mover for the motion as it stands?
No, I'm not moving the motion as it stands. I'm foreshadowing an amendment to the motion.
Okay. So mover for the motion? No. Oh, Councillor Withers has got his light on. So
I just wanted to ask a question from the amendment. Am I allowed to do that?
I think in this case, to clarify things, yes.
Yeah. Just, is there a reason why you want to leave B.1 just at that time? Or?
Thank you, Councillor Wooders. Yeah, the reason was that I think we need certainty about our next meeting, so it would be problematic if we left this meeting with no certain future fixture, but in relation to the ones after that, perhaps it might benefit from some discussion in a workshop.
Could I speak against the proposed amendment to go to a workshop? I think I would suggest that most of us have got a pretty fair idea of what...
Excuse me, Councillor Bailey, but there's been no... The motion hasn't been moved, so until it's been moved... So if you'd like to move it so we can put it on the table to discuss. Okay, Councillor Morat is moved. A seconder? Councillor O'Brien. Now... please, let's open it up for...
I don't think we need a workshop to work out timings. I think we should put a motion in a positive way forward, and that the timing of the meetings be locked in at 2 o'clock, which would allow people that are involved in work to work during the morning and then attend a council meeting. I don't quite know what we can achieve by going to a workshop to argue about whether it should be 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock. I think we've all got a pretty fair idea of our work patterns and what we do during the month, and I think if we lock into a time at 2 o'clock, it still allows the important opportunity for the public to be involved in what we do and for the public to attend. Whereas if we do it at 9 o'clock, the problem is that a large number of people involved in council who are on council, you can't get any work done in the morning because you've then basically lost the day. Whereas if you could work in the morning and then attend a council meeting, you can at least then provide some balance.
So I take it, Councillor Bailey, that you'd like to amend the Part B?
I'd like to amend B1 all the way through to B8, and the dates stay the same. That the dates stay the same, but the timing changed to 2 o'clock.
Is there a seconder for, and Councillor Martin?
Can we ask if Andrew Mayoral will accept that, and then we don't have to amend that?
Now, because Councillor Morat put that motion, are you happy for that amendment? Yep. So, anyone, you've had a discussion on the floor, people who want to, Councillor O'Brien?
Can I speak against that?
Yes, you can.
I think further discussion is necessary because whether it's 9 or 2, I think the issue is whether the public can attend. And so I think we need to probably knock that out a little bit. Obviously, there will be compromises necessary, but I think the issue is not just about us, although that's important because for a democratic sort of representation, there'll be people who are wage earners that should be taken into account. But it is about whether the public can attend as well. So I'm thinking further. If you didn't want a workshop, I would think further in the day, like 4 or something like that.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any Councillor Gatley?
If I can just have a quick say, I think that the 2 o'clock seems as if you can get a fair day's work done. This is the public and us councillors as well. It seems to be a good medium sort of a number where, and as we've said, if you have got appointments that you're booking in through the day, a starting period at 2 o'clock, you can do all your appointments before then. Whereas if we're starting at 9, we don't know what time we might be knocking off. We might be, so we really cannot take any more jobs from that 2 o'clock onwards, which seems to make sense to me as a business person. But thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor?
I'm speaking on behalf of people who've approached me from the community who are used to having evening meetings, and the reason I suggested a workshop or something like that where I don't have any objection to the dates, and perhaps we could just delete the time for items 2 to 8 until we've had a chance perhaps to, if you don't want to workshop it, at least look at some of the issues around members of the public who only wish to attend but who work full time, and 2 p.m. really doesn't cure that ill. Notwithstanding that I agree that it's a bit better than 9 o'clock, but it still doesn't cure the problem of people being unable to attend at all if they're in full-time employment. So I just hope that we could, behind the scenes, nut out something that actually better allows the community to attend the meetings.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Your microphone's... Thank you. Any other... Oh, sorry, Councillor Gray?
Can I just put forward that maybe there is a compromise and there doesn't necessarily need to be a workshop, and maybe a further amendment to Councillor Bailey's motion for 2 o'clock, and suggest a time at 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and suggest that those that have to do the travel, the people that do live in the rural areas, if that time is acceptable and workable for them, as well as the people that do need to work their day jobs, and also that it is a compromise for the community to be able to attend.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, I think there's... Did I have to wait for this to...
That's right.
I think that there is, as we see around the table, quite a lot of different possible times, from lunchtime, which might be better for people who want to work during the day, to 2 o'clock, to 3 o'clock, to 3:30. And I think just we're having lots and lots of workshops in the near future, so maybe just put this on the agenda for that would be the easiest way to come up with the best compromise, I think. So I support Councillor O'Connor's amendment if it gets up.
Thank you. Just bear with me for a sec. Right. Thank you. At the moment, we have an amendment to have the meetings at 2 o'clock, of which Councillor Murat is happy with that. I also want to have changes to this as well, and I am thinking that we're far better off to go, as maybe suggested a few times, to have a workshop on it, because otherwise we're going to have amendments on amendments, and it's not going to be clear. So, can I move from the chair that we defer it?
Well, the motion's been moved and
seconded.
So it has to go through a process to whether or not it's carried, unless we would like to put the amendment, and the amendment then gets voted and seconded and becomes the carried. Councillor's motion.
That is what I was concerned with, is that we're going to...
If I may clarify through the CEO, the motion is moved by Councillor O'Connor, which was Part A, Part B1, and that the remainder of the meeting cycle will be workshop. The amendment is as per the recommendation, but with a change from 9 AM to 2 PM. So we have to debate and resolve the amendment first, which is the 2 PM. If that amendment is defeated and there is no further amendment, then we need to debate the motion. But at the moment, we need to resolve the amendment, which is Councillor Bailey's amendment, as per the recommendation, but with a change from 9 AM to 2 PM. That is the one. And then also, Councillor O'Connor, she has a right of reply before the decision on the amendment is to be taken if she wishes to exercise that right of reply.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I've seen a fairly simple solution to this in the past, and that is you suspend standing orders. We go around the table and express our preference, and if there's a strong view one way, withdraw the amendment, withdraw the motion, and move according to the vast majority view, and that solves it like that.
Thank you, Councillor Tyler. I think that might be a far better way. Thank you. So Can I just move that we suspend standing orders? Right, to allow discussion.
You need someone, I'm sorry. I move that there be a short suspension of standing orders.
And second, that was Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Robertson. So, it's open for discussion now.
If I could, I'd just like to say that if we could make a decision now, then we can all make our decision and move on. Considering evenings, I understand that works very well for people that are involved in work, but there is now a very wide range of members of the Armidale Regional Council that live outlying of Armidale, and night time probably isn't the most suitable time for them. So in considering your time, I'd just like you to think not only of the couple of councillors that have got a long drive ahead of them, but also all the others from Guyra, Tinga, Ebor, Lower Creek that might like to come along to the meetings and have to get home as well.
Is this set in concrete? If we decide this and we get 2 or 3 meetings down the track and we say this isn't working very well, and we say, well, okay, can we bring this up and we can readdress the time? So I think it might be a bit of a chew and try it sort of a thing, and if it's not working, then we can fix it down the track. That's my suggestion anyway. So or 3 o'clock, whatever we come to, seems like a pretty reasonable hour, which should cover a broad spectrum of people that are at the meeting and also going to attend, or councillors and also people that are attending. So, thank you.
If I can put my 2 cents worth in, if you want it open for the public, then a lunchtime might be a good compromise because they can come to lunch. If you're going to start at 2 o'clock and it only goes for 3 hours, then the public can't go to attend anyway. So I find that argument a bit. So I would be saying, no, if you're looking at trying to get public in, 2 o'clock is most likely too late. I also would foreshadow that I'd like a meeting at Tinga. So if you're going to have meetings starting at 2 o'clock in Tinga and they go for 3 hours, then there's going to be an issue for all of the councillors and the staff to get back. So that again is suggesting that the 2 o'clock is most likely a bit too late.
Oh, was it me?
Yes.
Yeah, it is me. I'd like this. I reckon lunchtime would be a favourable option. Now, based on exactly what you said, but also it gives someone like myself who's working time to come out. I've got, as was mentioned by Councillor Gillespie, you've got the morning worth of work, so you're not having to take a full day off. And also, then it still allows, because I've got to organise babysitters and people to pick the kids up as well, so it allows me time to do that and everything else. So anyone else that wants to come that's got kids, it allows them to do that as well.
So the way I see this happening is that whatever, like there's times been discussed, when we come out of open session, we'll basically have to vote on that 2 o'clock because that's been put. And if someone wants then to put an amendment in to change it to, say, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, then we'll address that. So, Councillor Gillespie.
Yeah, I agree. In situations, say, like Tinga, which will probably be a one-off, we're imagining because they probably will be moving into the Inverell thing, which is an extraordinary meeting. We can put whatever time on and advertise that we want to do because it's not a set meeting anyway. So I agree wholly with just going ahead, and lunchtime's fine too. You know, I'm easy, but the Tinga one is probably not a good one to use because it's probably just a dead set one off.
Yes and no. There's no, the move of Tinga is not set in concrete. It's up to the councillors here to decide. So Tinga, if they come out in force and say, no, we'd rather stay with Armidale Regional Council, then a regular meeting, an annual meeting at Tinga would be highly desirable. Councillor O'Connor.
Hi, yes, I'd just like to reiterate my informal view that we need to consider many people for whom they're used to an evening meeting, a meeting that starts at 6 o'clock. It's not impossible to do. We've done it many years in Armidale Marrick. It's very convenient for the community. So that's just the representations that have been made to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion people want before we... Yes, Councillor Gray.
I think from what I'm hearing here anyway, the lunchtime 1 o'clock time slot, with the views that the members of the public could also attend, may be the happy compromise. Obviously that's for people to decide. I think that also that we have to bear in mind the geographic coverage that we now have needs to be seriously considered when thinking about an evening meeting as compared to what it was before. There's a significant change in that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councillor
When we come out of this discussion, I'm happy to amend to 1 o'clock. I think the other point we've got to remember is we have two councillors that live 75 kilometres from Armidale, and I think the thought of driving home at 10 o'clock at night or 10:30 at night, when if we were doing nighttime meetings, is unfair, and it's also dangerous. You've only got to have bouncy-wouncies come across the road, and suddenly we're in a situation where a councillor could be hurt. And I think we've got to be not only mindful of the public, but we've got to be mindful of the occupational health and safety of the people that live out of town. So that's why I think 1 o'clock would be a fair amendment.
Okay, no further discussion. So I will suspend standing orders. Resume standing orders, sorry.
You need a motion. You do need a motion to resume, I think. But anyway, I would put a motion to resume standing orders.
And second, that's Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Robinson. So we're back. So we have on the table that it's a amendment of a 2 o'clock meeting commencement. Is that an agreement with this? So the motion we're going to discuss is the time for all of those meetings be moved to 1 o'clock. So, Margaret, do you have a right to reply?
This is going to sound perverse, but in fact I would prefer 2 if it's a choice between 1 and 2, because when are we going to have our lunch? You know, if we're going to finish a morning's work, it usually finishes, 1, lunch, and then meeting 2. I just think for the convenience of everybody, we should have an opportunity to eat as we draw away into the afternoon. Anyway, that's all I want to say. I still support the opportunity for a workshop and for some consideration of what I would have put in a workshop situation is that we would have some evening meetings in Armidale, and clearly Guy is used to a morning meeting and that suits them. And so long as they're properly notified to the public, then we can really satisfy everybody's concerns. But anyway, I'm in the hands of council.
Right. Okay, there's no further discussion. I will put that to the vote. This is where we're voting on the amendment that the times for the meetings commence at 1 o'clock. Show of hands, please. Those in favour? 7. And those against? Did you get those? And 2 against. The amendment is carried. Now, can I put an amendment myself?
The amendment becomes the motion.
So the amendment
Yes.
substantive motion, so if it's moved and seconded, we go through the same process.
I want to move to the media 2, which is not on the list. So I will do that.
Do you want to change one of those meetings with your order? Do you want to check whether Councillor and Councillor Ryan are happy for it? Or should we get into nothing on that? It's been carried now. The amendment's been carried.
That was a time.
Yeah, so now it's back as a motion. It could be
We've already got to move for the next motion. For the same motion we've been doing.
You can go through that process when you start to see whether the member actually had anything to do
That might be an easy way of going.
I think so.
See?
So, well, it comes to substantive motion, so it could be a different movement and a different seconder. So you have to call it the amendment is a substantive because the substantive motion is a mover and a seconder.
So, sorry for the delay. I'm getting clarification on procedures. This motion now, there's a substantive. The amendment becomes a substantive. Yep. Motion. And we need a mover and a seconder, please. So, Councillor Bailey and Councillor Gillett. Now, I would ask those two movers and seconders whether we could have Tinga included in the list of locations. Yes. So, Councillor Bailey, both agree? And Councillor Morat, yes. I would like, because of Tinga's disposition within this council area, I think we should get over there as soon as possible. So I'm suggesting December. So December meeting we have at Tinga. Yep. So we will take the Armidale meeting out and replace it with the Tinga meeting. Councillor O'Connor?
Yeah, I would object to that. I think that Tinga is clearly part of the former Guyra Shire Council, and it should be a Guyra meeting, should not be taken away from the Armidale community, which I'm sure we're all aware is numerically larger than either Guyra or Tinga. Thank you.
Councillor Widders.
Just in regards to Councillor O'Connor's point, we're now the Armidale Regional Council, and every part of the region should be represented. So I think a meeting at Tinga within the next 2 meetings is a necessity, just to let them know that we actually care about them and that they're part of this region, even though they may be a small part of the region, they're still part of the region. Big Toe's still part of the body, even though it's only a small part.
Thank you, Councillor Widders.
Question to the Mayor. Do we then propose to have a meeting in Wallamumbi?
Councillor Bailey, the population of Tinga is significantly higher than Wallamumbi. So
yeah, but I'm saying, are we going to move the meetings around all the regional villages that we have?
I don't foresee that, because I think the facilities we have at a lot of those places might be limited. Wallamumbi, yes, they could do it. Other locations would have difficulty. I would just suggest we have the council meeting at Tinga once a year for that community, because it's 800 odd people, significant population outside these 2 major centres.
I would agree with, in speaking to the motion, I would agree with Councillor O'Connor in that it should be an Armidale meeting, a Guyra meeting. If it's not a Guyra meeting, that Guyra slot should be the Tinga slot, because Armidale is nearly 70% of the council's population, and we should have the vast majority of our meetings here. So I agree with Councillor O'Connor that it should be Armidale, and if the next one is meant to be in Guyra, then we put it in Tinga.
From the chair, the difficulty I have with that is that, again, it's a bit like Councillor Widders said, they are part of the community.
Not saying that.
We're not saying that Tinga is part of Guyra. It's not part of Guyra. It is a separate community. And therefore I see no reason why we cannot just simply replace one meeting in December that happens to fall out to be an Armidale meeting and make it a Tingha meeting. But anyway,
Can I just please clarify, was
sorry,
Tingha
Councillor.
put into the amendment? Has that been?
That was moved by me, yes.
Yeah, so it's been put in, definitely?
Yep. Two agreed. So it is,
Yeah, okay.
it is there.
Speaking for Tingha to be in there and be on the third meeting, so 13th of December, I'm in agreement with Councillor Witters that Tingha is an important part of our region and probably a community that has felt a bit lost and left out and in no man's land. And I think it's very important that we as a council support them being in our region.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Witters?
Back to me again, sorry. Just in regards to my point earlier, and also having that one within the first 3 months may allow us to get their feeling on whether they would like us to continue to look after them or whether they would like to move on to other premises and other councils. So I think having it early can sort of get rid of those issues to begin with, but I'm only one person.
Yeah, no, I agree there, Bradley. I think we could actually have it pretty well through the Tingha community that we are having a meeting and that they are most welcome to come and advertise it as such, that this is part of their decision of, you know, that they are getting to decide their own fate to a certain degree, you know.
Thank you, Councillor Gillespie. Okay, I think there's no new input. We will put the amendment that the motion that Tingha is included in the list and it's on December the 13th. So can I have a show of hands, please? Carried. Is that it? So we're moving on? Item 8.4, which is the council representation on the New England Weeds Authority. Recommendation that council appoint 3 councillors to the New England Weeds Authority, County Council, for the term of the council in accordance with the advice received from the Office of Local Government. So could I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Gillespie and Councillor Martin. Moved and seconded. So, Councillor Gillespie?
I'd like to nominate to be on that crew. I think the credentials that I've got, I pretty well know most of the area. Travelled over it myself from the east to the west to the north. Not that we got much at the south, but all that country I'm familiar with. I've got a bit of a rurally background, so I know a bit about noxious weeds, and I think I can work well with the people that are on that board. So, and convey their thoughts and whatever through us fairly well. So I'm very happy to be part of that.
Thank you, Councillor Gillespie. Councillor O'Connor? Oh, sorry.
I think it's actually me.
Brian.
No, I was next. I'd already pressed it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, right. I pressed it when John was talking, so it's in the queue. I think that's all right. No.
You're next in line.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Gillespie. Councillor Martin.
I'd also like to nominate to be on the New England Weeds Authority. There's a lot of change that's been happening lately that not everyone here may be aware of on farm biosecurity, and that involves quite a bit to do with the Weeds Authority. So yes, I'd like to also nominate.
Councillor O'Brien.
I would like to nominate Margaret O'Connor to be on that committee. She has some experience on this committee, and in fact, can I allow her to speak to that? Is that what you do? Can you do that? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, now I've got the red. Yeah, I know. I was acting on the Weeds Council prior to the dissolution of the Armidale Demerit Council. I've got a good relationship with the staff there. I'm primary producer, and I agree with Councillor Martin. There's substantial biosecurity developments occurring in this space, and as a person who has farming operations in both Ingara and until recently Armidale, but also Uralla, I would really value the opportunity to represent both Armidale and Guyra primary producers who are very much at the heart of this council's interests on the Weeds Council. There's a number of issues that are of great significance to our primary producers going forward. And the other matter is that I've already taken significant time to educate myself about weeds and the invasion curve and various aspects of how we manage weeds that are no longer sort of high on the invasion curve. And I would just really appreciate this council's support in being nominated to be the councillor to that, to the Weeds Council. Thanks.
I'd also like to put myself forward to go on this committee. I've been on this committee previously for the last 4 years, and up until the period of administration at least. And I have worked in this field in a previous life, so I've got a very, very good understanding of the operations of a Weeds County Council and how they operate and all the legal ramifications, etc.
Yeah, I was also like to support Councillor O'Connor, but also nominate myself if that's possible.
So we have 5 nominations. So we're going to have to go by ballot.
So first we need to move that there were 5 nominated. So the 5 councillors that have been nominated, that needs to be moved, and then there's a process of ballot. And
so we move that Councillor Gilletley, Martin, O'Connor, Mayoral.
sorry.
The recommendation is the motion. Put that to the council. Then that's the resolution. Then you can suspend standing orders to undertake a ballot for the 3 positions, noting that you've got 5 nominated.
Right. Thank you. So we'll move on the motion, which was to appoint 3 councillors. No, it's already been moved and seconded. So we're going to now vote on that motion. So show of hands. Yes, it's all unanimous passed. Now we're going to have to suspend standing orders. So you've got a mover for suspending, Councillor Morat and Councillor Martin. So we can have this. So we can have a ballot to determine 3 out of the 5 nominees.
Yeah.
Sorry? We're voting for 3. So it's going to be an open.
So we need to.
A show of hands for people or a closed ballot?
Is that a motion that we need to put forward? No, because it's standing orders, isn't it?
It was
It's been suspended. So show of hands. Let's just go with that.
Okay, we'll go through that process. Then I think we have to call them.
So we have to I'll just go round the room. So Councillor Gilletley, please. Are there a number of support people vote? Yeah.
Okay.
6, 7. That's 7. Yeah, you got to pick 3. So we're just that's 7. Councillor, that's 7. Thank you. Councillor Martin. 6. Councillor Morat. 7. Councillor O'Connor. 3. Councillor Robinson. 4. So, yep. The outcome of that is the councillors going forward to the New England Woods Authority, councillors Gilletley, Martin and Murray.
Yeah.
That's it?
And now we resume standing orders?
Yeah, but we don't have to then go back to this to do we to standing orders? No, resume. Right. Now, I'm going to move to resume. Was it councillor? Standing orders? Councillors Gray and Councillor Robertson. Now, motion.
So when it's moved and seconded, then you put it to the vote to make sure it's carried.
Now, is that, we have to put this to a vote. Can we resume standing? Those in favour? Carried. Now, we need a motion to appoint the 3 councillors Gilletley, Councillor Martin and Councillor Murat to the New England Woods Authority. So can I move? Councillor Robertson, Councillor Withers. No, the discussion is all done, so those in favour? 4, 5, so carried. Oh, thank God you're here. Thank God you didn't go on holidays. 8.5, council representation on external bodies. That council determine the council representation on external bodies listed in the report for the term of council. So there's a mover for that motion. Councillor Tiley, Councillor Morat. I think we'll do. That's a good question. It might be the easiest. I move that we suspend standing orders to have a discussion on it and then put those names straight up to in those panels. So moved, Councillor Gray, second Councillor Moran. Okay, for the do we need an alternate for the Country Mayors Association? It's basically going to just be the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, unless we want an alternate. I don't know if it's ever in the past needed an alternate, did they? Yeah, right. So leave it. And that's basically the same with the NEOG. Joint Regional Planning Panel. On that. Councillor Robertson.
I'm just very interested in planning and I'd really like to represent this community on the Joint Regional Planning Panel.
Thank you.
But I'm interested to know who else is interested.
No one else is interested?
I'll put my hand up for that one if no one else is interested.
So we'll have to have a ballot. Yep. We might as well do that now. Anyone else interested in that role? Now, just for the people that haven't been involved in it, it is a for large planning proposals. I think it's $10 million. Correct me if I'm wrong. 20 million now. So, for example, the classic one was the tomato farm up at Guyra. Very large plan. They're taking it outside the scope of the local councils to do, and they bring in a regional panel to make the assessment. And if it was in Armidale, if a big project was planned for Armidale, the delegates on that committee can't be on it, right? You can only serve on that panel if you're outside your area. So that's what the role is. So effectively you're going to be making planning decisions for $20 million, thank you, projects.
This is normally the mayor and the deputy mayor that takes this particular role, is it?
Yes.
The mayor and the councillor.
And a councillor can.
I'm just thinking that it probably is with big big things like this, it probably is best that the mayor and deputy mayor are the ones that are in the role. And that's my suggestion, you know, because...
Well, look at mayor and councillor.
Yeah, or mayor and councillor, yeah, for sure. But mayor and councillor, I think the mayor's a big part of it, for sure.
So clarification on your statement there, in regards to if a development's on in Armidale, these to the mayor and the councillor would then have to go off that or off that planning panel? Or?
Now, if it's what happens is that we'll all put our names forward for it, okay, and it's they might need say 4 people, 5 people on the panel, so it could be. If it's a big project outside here, it could be one person from here and another person from another area. Chances are they won't get to take the 2 from the same area, and they'll be selected on that panel to then make the decision.
Okay, thank you.
I'm quite happy to put myself forward on that as well.
Oh, great. Well, I think we're going to have a ballot on that. So there's 3 nominees to be in addition to the mayor is Councillor Robinson, Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Gray. So again, we'll have a show of hands, please. I'll go again around clockwise. We're only voting one person, yes. Show of hands for Councillor Gray on that committee. 5. Councillor O'Connor. 3. And Councillor Robinson. 2. So Councillor Gray is the elected person for that. The last one is the New England Bushfire Management Committee. I've served on that before, so if someone else wants to go on that committee.
What's it consist of? Look, basically speaking, is that, seeing you've been on it before, you're familiar with it?
It's you basically, the council has to put in resources and support to the regional rural fire service. And we have all the councils in this area. So there's the 4 councils, well, used to be the 4 councils. Yeah, right. So we all put into it. The chair at the moment is the mayor of Uralla. So the meetings are basically, a lot of it is the planning, different agencies. So you have the New South Wales Parks, the Rural Fire Service, the Urban Fire Service, a whole lot. Everything. So, and we got New South Wales farmers attending. So there's not a big role in as far as attending the meeting.
And I think I can work with people like that as well. So I'm happy to nominate that. And I hope someone tell me, seeing I'm a new kid on the block here, I'm not speaking much name, but then I'm joining the meeting. I hope I'm not putting my hand up too much already. But I am enthusiastic. Sorry. But I am enthusiastic, as you can see, and I do like working with people. So I'm happy to have a crack at that too, because they're my type of people as well, I think.
That is something we're going to have to look at in the future is the number of committees and the people on those committees to make sure we don't have a lot of people on one committee, etc. So, any other people want to be on the Rural Fire Service? Bushfire Committee? No. Okay, so we'll nominate. Okay. So we can suspend. Resume. I'm always saying the wrong way. We'll resume.
Is there a mover?
Is there a mover for that, please? Councillor Martin and Councillor Gray. Okay. Right, so we have.
So we've got to make sure that we've carried the first motion.
Yeah, we've got to need a show of hands on the recommendation that council determine the council representation on the external bodies listed in the report for the term of council. So, those in favour?
Yeah.
Carried.
And then we go to the point. So
now, we need a mover and a seconder that we appoint the Councillor Gray for
the planning, the JRPP?
The JRPP, and Councillor Gilletley for the Rural Fire, New England Bushfire Management Committee. So a mover for that, Councillor Martin, Councillor Urat. Those in favour? Carried. Oh yeah, I'm getting a swing of this. 8.6 is just before, I've got a slight problem. My car's going to be towed away soon, so how many people got issues? Can we suspend standing orders for 10 minutes to allow people to move? Sorry? Yeah, but I got there at 8:30. No, but it should be coming up close in case. Who else is caught though?
I need to go as well to move my car.
I recommend you keep that, as we probably use the all-day parking area up there and then travel up at the park. So can you? I'm right for half an hour. Half an hour.
While we don't go back to the old system, by under the Armidale Generic, you had a pass to be able to, if you come in on council business for 3 hours, and you could park in the town hall.
Well, we might take that up afterwards. So no, we're sorted. We'll continue on the meeting. Thanks.
Dr. Tyler's left the room.
So, no problem.
I don't know. Go to the toilet, I don't know.
What are we doing?
So we'll continue with the meeting because it's been tough. Item 8.6, which is council delegate to the mayor. The delegations contained in the instrument of delegation mayor, which is listed below. So can I have a mover? Councillor Morat, Councillor Gray. Councillor Morat. You wish to speak for this motion? Someone wish to speak against the motion? Then I'll put it to the council. Those in favour? Carried. Item 8.7, review of CEO delegation of authority. Now this is in 4 parts. As you see, that any previous delegation to this Chief Executive Officer Peter Dennis be revoked. That council delegate to the Chief Executive Officer Peter Dennis the instrument of delegation CEO attached. For the period 27 September 2017 and onwards, appoint one of the 2 group leaders to act as CEO if the CEO is sick or otherwise absent from work or on leave, with such appointment to cease upon the return to work of the CEO or other resolution of the council. And the last point, that council delegate to any person acting as Chief Executive Officer pursuant to this resolution all the functions, delegations and sub-delegations given to the CEO by the council. So, mover, please.
Can I move this goes to a workshop, please? I've read the act and I don't have the same clarity. I'd like to have a workshop about it so that I can understand what the appropriate levels are, because I want to ensure that we're doing the right thing by the community. So we'll listen tonight for a workshop.
So you'll move, Councillor Daly, you're moving that we defer it?
I would second that.
Councillor O'Connor.
And put it to the vote.
Yeah. So if I can put that to the vote, please. Those in favour of deferring this to a workshop? 6, 7, 8. It's passed. Thank you. Item 8.8, ratification of the fixing of mayor and councillor fees. That council endorsed minute 126.17 of 2017, fixing the 2017-18 fees payable to council at the maximum rate of $19,310 and fixing the 17-18 fees payable to mayor at the maximum $42,120. So a mover, and Councillor Morat. Councillor Gray. Speak for, against. We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. God, this is getting quicker. I don't know about 7 minutes. But. Item 8.9, draft media policy, and there's 5 points there. I might not read them all out. You can read them there yourself. I'd like a mover and a seconder, please.
I'd like to move similarly to the last motion that matter be deferred. I think there are some matters which the new councillors might like to discuss in a workshop scenario.
Seconder for that, please. Councillor O'Brien. So, moved by Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Do you want to speak to it, Councillor O'Connor?
Only briefly. I think the relationship between councillors and media is quite complex because there are issues of freedom of speech involved, and also the way in which councillors are able to liaise or perform their role under Section 232 of the Act vis-a-vis the community, and communicating with the community, and the media is obviously a very important part of that. So I would just think it would be fairer on all councillors actually for this matter to be discussed in a workshop scenario, so that going forward everybody understands their obligations, and that councillors have a chance to have some input into how they would like to relate to the media. It's freedom of speech is pretty precious, and it's also pretty critical to performing the role of councillor. And I just think we would benefit as a group, and our relationship with council as an organisation would be enhanced if we had a chance to talk about this and why that policy is there, why all those provisions are there, and possibly amend some of them. It would just be a much more solid way of going forward if we could defer that to a workshop.
Too. I think it's important that we do understand the policy, particularly with...
Councillor Bailey, do you have to speak against it?
No, speaking in favour of going to a workshop.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking, is there someone that wants to speak against it? No. Oh.
This isn't necessarily against it, it's probably my understanding of the actual recommendation, because this is a draft media policy and it's up for 4 weeks. So is council able to workshop within those 4 weeks and then put the recommendations for the draft? So I'm not sure if I'm understanding that correctly. So it's a draft policy. So going up for 28 days, do we need to, yeah, we can still have a workshop in that period while still moving this motion.
Just to clarify, if you put it up, you'd nearly need to have it in its final stages, because otherwise any changes to it will then have to be put up for 28 days. So I'd like to ask the CEO if he's got any comments on this. Michael, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The governance around local government has undertaken a major review with the Office of Local Government. One of the areas that was of focus was media policy. It is essential to get the balance right between freedom of speech and what the role of councillors and council as a full council, and protecting the reputation of council, particularly with social media today. It's a very different environment. So this policy is based on working with Office of Local Government in terms of what best practice is. The intention is to provide councillors training in a whole range of things, and there's some sessions with Office of Local Government coming up in terms of interactions with staff, in terms of media, and the like. So there's been a lot of work into positioning this right, and there will be an opportunity for councillors to receive training and clarification. It is being put out there for draft, and council then consider what comes back from the community as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So can I just ask Margaret a question? Is it that the workshop was to workshop the draft media before it goes to public? Is that your intention?
Yes, I'd just like to make, first of all, in respect of Councillor Gray's question, as the Mayor indicated, it's much better to have a finalised document to go to the public, because then you've only got to consider the public's comment on it rather than have to redo it. So it's much better to have a workshop prior to releasing the draft, in my view, releasing that draft for public exhibition. Secondly, whilst I acknowledge that the CEO has mentioned training, which obviously will be very helpful, it's also an important role of councillors to have an input, I believe, into what the policy is, and to have the opportunity to have that input, because it does involve councillors' ability to properly communicate and not cut across, to understand how to exercise their right of free speech, but nevertheless support council going forward. So that's why I'm proposing let's go to a workshop, so that we can have some input into the draft before it goes on public exhibition. Thanks.
So we have a motion to defer it, and it's been seconded. So if there's any further discussion, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of deferring this to a workshop to be returned back to council? Raise your hand. 2. It's unanimous. Right.
Not unanimous, not Dr.
Oh, no, it passed. Sorry. Councillor. Yes. We go to 8.1. Item 8.10. Again, 5 points there for looking at the councillor and staff interaction policy. Before we... Oh no, we're going to move this in a second before we go discuss it. So can I have a mover, please? Councillor Morat, seconder. Councillor Widders. So it's on the table. Councillor Morat. Nothing to... Oh. So anyone speak for or against?
Can I speak? I'm against the policy as it is. I've checked with a number of councils around the state, and I understand from this that we're allowed to interact with the executive team, and that's fine. Or if you're on the Economic Development Committee, you could interact with the Manager of Economic Development, or if you're on another one, you could interact with them. But if I wanted to interact with the engineering manager, I wouldn't be able to unless I was on one of the committees. I find it strange that my wife can ring a council member, council staff, and ask a question and have a discussion with them. But my reading of this is I'm limited in my capacity to talk to staff. Now, I'm not suggesting, and I understand that we're not there to start directing staff what to do. That's not our role. We're there to provide policy and advice, but we're not there to tell. And I understand the separation of power. But to me, if things come up, I think we should have a relationship with the management, the next level down, that would allow us to at least talk to them. If the relationship breaks down and I became aggressive with the manager about a particular issue, I would understand that the Mayor and the CEO would have the right to say, Peter, you can't interact with that manager, and that you're going to have to go through the executive. But when you've got situations where the executive could be away, as they were last week, we need to have an arrangement in place that there is some capacity to interact with the top, whatever it is, 13 or 14 people in the council to get issues resolved. Because and it should be done on a trust basis. And so I would not be prepared to support it that it's just the three. I mean, apart from the two executive support staff. I think that's too restrictive, and I think we should be trusted to go down to the next level, and it be monitored for 6 months, and then if after 6 months it's found that, you know, I'm ringing Lindsay Woodland 3 times a day, well, then you obviously have to deal with it. But if it's just an occasional query or question, I don't see that as something that should be held back.
I might just ask the CEO to comment on this motion. Please.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Mayoral.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a super important issue, and it was one that was discussed at length with through the good governance workshops with all the local governments going through amalgamation with all the administrators and general managers. It is really important to get that separation of duty. It does not prevent, this policy does not prevent a councillor. I've got a very open style, and it doesn't prevent you talking to the roads person, but it'll be through me, so or through the group leader. It applies to both councillors and council staff. So it really, this policy reflects best practice in governance. The intention's not to be restrictive, but to manage that separation of powers that you alluded to. That's really important. The best way to do that is communication. It is super critical that as CEO and my group leaders have awareness of all interactions. If there's a particular issue that a councillor would like to talk with one of the service leaders or something like that, then it's simply a matter of going through the executive team and facilitating that discussion. There's also workshops and the committees where a range of staff will be involved in those processes, which will allow interaction at that point as well. So I think this is not restrictive, and it reflects best practice, and I would be very concerned about a policy that opens up increased staff interaction beyond what's here at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor O'Connor.
Oh yes, look, I really thank the CEO for that explanation. My concern is, though, the same as Councillor Bailey's, that until we understand this new level of governance that this policy has clearly come from, as according to the CEO, the question I'm raising is, are there sort of two levels or two approaches to governance now, those for councils that have been merged and those for councils that did not get forcibly merged? I just think this is a matter that, once again, all of the councillors here need to discuss it in some kind of workshop process so that we understand the reasons. I don't have an issue and never have had an issue with the separation of powers or with going through the general manager or certain designated people that is consistent with this policy, but I think it's very important that we understand what those governance changes are and what the object is of this policy before we just endorse it without really understanding that. So that's why I'm supporting Councillor Bailey's position in deferring this matter until we've had an opportunity to discuss it with the staff. Thank you.
So, Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Bailey, one of you going to move an amendment to that, or?
I'll move it to go to a workshop.
And second by Councillor O'Connor. Councillor.
Yeah, sorry, just before we voted on that, I just wanted a clarification, if I could, from the CEO. If I had an issue with the well mesh coming through the road dip in our road, which happens quite regularly, I usually ring Peter Walsh and he comes out and fixes it up for me. So my question to you, Peter, was does that mean that I actually can't ring Peter Walsh but my husband can?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Martin. So councillors are fully entitled to interact with council in the same way as a customer, as a member of the community, that any other member of the community can. The separation of powers is making sure you don't overstep the mark in terms of using your position as councillor to get something that a normal member of the community cannot get. So you can absolutely, you can interact with the council as a normal customer and a member of the community, and that's fine. It's just that separation of powers that's really important.
Councillor Whip.
Ladies from downstairs probably explained this to me yesterday, but because I'm old and I need some more clarification. When working with different advisory groups, do you continually have to, like if there's someone on council that's part of that group, do you continually have, every time you want to talk about that group, do you have to go through this process, or is it a one-off originally start with and then you just can interact anyway?
If your microphone's still live, Councillor
Yeah.
This discussion seems to be asking a lot of questions of the policy, and I'm in a view that there's been an amendment to the motion that we defer it. I think that might be a far better way to get these questions answered and get it clear, because otherwise we're going to have to suspend standing orders to allow an open discussion, and so Councillor Gray?
I was going to say exactly that.
So,
there seems to be a lot of questions, so the workshop idea seems to be...
So I'll put that the amendment, which was to defer this motion, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? It passed.
Now it becomes a substantive motion.
Now this becomes a substantive motion which we need a mover and a seconder for. So Councillor Gray, Councillor Martin.
And to put to the vote.
And we put to the vote again. So those in favour, please. And it's carried. No, it wasn't unanimously. Yes. So, thank you. What's the last one? It's I think we did that, didn't we?
So we've got an induction.
Yeah. 12.1, is that the next? I think. Council onboarding and induction program. The recommendation that the phase 1 program be to induct and onboard the new council be delivered from September to December 2017, be revived and received and noted. My apologies. Do we need a move and second? We do need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Robinson and Councillor Martin. It's just a noting, so. Anyone have any?
Speak for.
Speak for it, against it, question it?
No, put it to the vote.
Everyone's read? Put it to the vote. Those in favour? It's carried. And 12.2, we have to just, because we've done it. The oath or affirmation of office, those two recommendations. I'll put that. Does someone have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Murat, Councillor Robinson. We've already done this, so put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. And that.
Is there anything else on the agenda?
I don't know.
Is there anything else on the agenda, Peter? On the second page?
There's no committee reports.
No, on the next page, like that page. No. Closed session, there's no closed session, so you can close the meeting.
Okay, well, I'll close the first inaugural meeting of the Armidale Regional Council, and it closed at time 11:14. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.